Welcome to Broken by Design, where old builds come back under review. Some saves fail mechanically, some lose their identity, some still function, but no longer have a clean next move. 1,171 days ago, I built this city. So before this save gets archived, rebuilt, or continued, we need to find the system failure. And more importantly, we need to find why did I stop? And let's just kind of dive in here and just take a look at the city. This was a long time ago. This was 3 years ago. To be honest, off first glance, I like a lot of things. I see some immediate issues. Right here, we have a really interesting neighborhood hub. And so we have a little soccer field. It's pretty well detailed overall. Elder care, that's not bad. It's on the somewhat edge of town, but it's also the beginning of town based on how the highway system's set up. Looks like we have another kind of residential block of, well, higher density for one, which is interesting. It doesn't have a really tall skyline, but it does have a substantial one. We have a high school, an elementary school, a library, and now this whole block definitely looks unfinished. It kind of loses character in a sense to me, and to be honest, even is this Main Street or is this Main Street? I'm not really sure. While these are front-facing businesses and that's great, it immediately on this side you're back to neighborhood, so it's a little one-sided, a little odd. We definitely have our minimal. We have a fish factory, we have a little industrial, we have recycling for trash, and we have our sewage kind of tucked out here. That is one thing I've noticed. I kind of dig the roadway cut in. Gives you that, they carved it out, and it's kind of cool looking. So this kind of looks like it probably has intent to come out through here. Not a bad little section. Let's turn a few things on. Let's get our borders on. That's probably one reason. Probably definitely want to curve this out more. The city was definitely built on progression mechanics. We get a little further out. We do have some unique water features. I do actually vaguely remember this. This is all cut in after the fact. It didn't come with the map. I like the detail. I like the bridge. I like the multi-bridge, to be honest. It's unique. Another elder care. But here's definitely where you can tell there's meant to be a transition. Like this is definitely starting to look like a secondary town. And while that's great from a concept point, it doesn't really have a good clean transition of it. It just kind of looks like one big blend. And while that is working as a separation, it's still lacking. This town had pretty immediate access to rail, so that's pretty cool. Power still looks to be in a intermediate stage of where it should go. I would assume maybe the concept was to put it kind of tucked out here on the other side of the train tracks, or somewhere. And then it looks like we have a pretty clean, coherent path that the intention and by the land, the tile purchases, this is meant to be the next development in the next town. But let's take a look at a few game mechanic aspects. Maybe the save was abandoned for, definitely not money. Its city is profitable, sitting at 10.5. 11 million in the treasuries. Basic demand meter expectations, I would expect at the point that you're looking to expand, you're going to have high residential. Traffic, 82. Not horrible, not great. It could be better. The grid's interesting. It has some outskirt kind of toned down feel, and this definitely looks like the sense of a second kind of municipality, out of town, unincorporated, transition. The transition's a little off, and it looks like a lot of our main problem here is definitely the road network. In a sense, it's not that the overall grid is in horrible shape, because it's not. It does have more geometry based grid work. We really do have squaring. We do have some unique curves. There is some curvatures, that looks like you're kind of dealing with some terrain movement, stuff like that. And this is definitely where you're starting to really see some more organic type grid work that works with the land, because it's definitely mountainous over here. So kind of starts to force you, and then you have interesting road networks that kind of maximize that area, so that's good. But we definitely have some legitimate hotspots. Now this is definitely train, so you do have a lot of in-out, but this isn't a really good resource right here. It's really hot-pocketed here. We have a lot of four-way intersections sitting here, and that's causing some bottlenecks. And then of course the entry right off the bridge on top of a secondary entry. Now while that's good interconnection, it's also causing a lot of problems. And we're fluxing 78, 79. Traffic's getting worse as we look at it. So I think a lot of that problem is right here. It's like this road is intended to be out through here, but it got bombarded by a Main Street debate that why does this start here? It's already an awkward build in here with Main Street fluxing on one side and residential on the other side. We're kind of cut off from what is essentially kind of a very strong tourist attraction in a sense. There's there's ferry pier, we have a fishing industry, we have a fish market, we have a lot of good organic supporting that fish market, good parking, continued organic stalls. From the aspect of what is the system failure here, it's, I wouldn't say glaringly apparent, but it really seems more of an identity crisis in a sense. So I think we could fix that with some pretty basic changes that wouldn't be too shocking overall. Now, I think we would want to start in a couple areas. One, I think we need to give it its identity with the road network. We have a good outer road network here that really takes you into this municipality. And we have a good kind of internal run that would essentially take you out to the next town in a sense. So now, whether or not this needs to be upgraded to this size, I would say the thought process here was more, this is, highway business, and this is going back to highway, and a lot of towns work that way. There is not essentially always a bypass, but I think where we could start, and it's going to probably freak the town out. Let's just see what happens. We'll keep running live. Normally I'd probably hit pause to take away and reshape road networks, but I think to start, and we might still have to hit pause. Let's just take that away. So now we've disconnected the main town, and we've made this our functional main collector, and now that's going to probably put a lot of pressure on this side road, and so we might have to move it down and maybe T-junction in. and that's fine too. Now, we could hit pause and we could back this thing all the way up and take it down to a smaller road network out of city limits in a sense. And that would probably help us with appearance a little bit. And I also think that having this road network now coming through where we've kind of discontinued this entire look of main arterial connecting in a T-junction, we probably could back this out or disconnect, or at least disconnect around here, and we probably could bridge over and connect these two roads, and now you would have a true back road outer network. And essentially, now that we've disconnected, this becomes our primary junction, which means this is more of our main street. And while this connection is not bad, probably could keep it. We could also maybe get rid of it. We'll just have to see how it goes. Let's go ahead and do that. I think that's a pretty realistic plan to change the identity here and really give it purpose between what started off looks like as a reasonable idea and concept that ultimately just lost creative direction. So I think we can just reconnect this straight across as the other bridge ran. And it's not bad. Cars are floating. So that's cool. Now we can go ahead and take advantage of the terrain that was already here for the highway system. So now we've kind of made this connection our full running operation that takes you to the next town, and at the same time it kind of runs into industrial, and the train, so I mean there's some aspects here, but I think we'll have to make some changes out here. So let's take a look here. Well, we already have a pretty, it's like this was meant to be Main Street, and then like we have a 4-lane in here, and we have a 4-lane running all the way in, like the intent. Now we're kind of driving that. We should go ahead and disconnect over here. I think that makes sense. We also have the 4-lane running all the way to right here in this neighborhood. So let's back this up and back that up. Maybe one more. Might have to redo some power lines. Now, here, I think we could leave the restaurant, and because it kind of makes sense. Now, I think we have to decide between one or the other, and being that this road makes less sense, we're going to take that one out. And are these just houses? No, it's a sheriff office and a fire department, which is interesting, to say the least. So we'll back that up and we'll decide on what our service coverage is in a minute. Let's get a bridge running. Now we have a little problem here. So that's an interesting one. I think instead of trying to make some odd connection, let's kind of just carve through the mountain over here real quick. So that's probably a good tad bit of overkill. So we'll downgrade this road. So I think that's kind of a dead end to a dirt road that takes you out to the water facility. And now this gas station makes a lot less sense now, but there is a helicopter pad here that probably does almost all of its business. And that doesn't mean that there isn't some possible things that could change with tile. I don't think it's the end of the world just to leave it as is. So now we've got some of our road network back in. Now I do think that we're at a point now where we're fully reconnected and we can get our simulation back live, and it's gonna probably really freak out the system here for a minute. Now, I do think that this interchange makes a lot less sense now, and really the terrain's not bad, so I think we can grab our 4 lanes, since that seems to be all we're using on this map. Force them further down. Hopefully that'll ease a little traffic issues by putting some node separation in. Now, that now means that really this is our main street. And that's not too bad. It's not too horrible of a thought process either. Let's take a quick look at traffic, see what we've done. Well, we did eliminate kind of this end's hotspot issues a little bit. Now, we do have still quite a bit. This is still a 4-way junction. These are T-junctions, that's fine. Not really sure why they're hot. We're already up to 84, 85, so that solved a lot of problems right off the bat, because we were sitting around 79, 80, so we've already jumped about 5. Now, I would also think that this section doesn't make sense, that section doesn't make sense. Now we can maintain our housing with kind of cul-de-sac, which if we were taking on a full rebuild, I think you could reestablish the end of the neighborhood a lot cleaner, and you can establish this end a lot cleaner. Okay, so now we have a cul-de-sac. Now, we're definitely running a very interesting mixture of vanilla and custom. So I think that kind of recaps our end over here. This is still a question, but I don't think the police service makes a ton of sense. Let's take a look. And we have quite a bit, actually. Like, definitely running more with purity of game mechanic. We're very green-lit, and it's not super overkill, but I would say I would have liked to just get rid of it. Now, that doesn't really hurt our coverage dramatically. You know, we still have this one. We'll still get coverage. It's just not exactly. Now, I mean, we do have great crime rates, 3%. So that takes care of this end of town and kind of reestablishing it. The next question is, would you realistically kind of run through here? Now, to me, it's a no. I think at best we would keep this, and I'd drop that one. Let's get rid of this house. Get rid of these. Let's reconnect our pedestrian pathways. Okay, so now we have a little interconnecting. Let's in-cap this just a little bit visually. And I think this is a bit much. Since we're zoned, let's D-zone, and now that gives us kind of a unique corner that you could take on. Personally, I think the whole inner concept here is a little wacky. Now, this doesn't make a very interesting thought process. It makes kind of this whole inner network a loop, in a sense, a big U. I mean, it's okay. You know, I think if we were taking on this as a less of a fix and more of a continuation, I would probably just dive in here and do a full redevelopment. We have a good facility on the end. It can match up with the hospital real well, and you could kind of eliminate this entire road. Probably cut this lane out and and then you'd have a little bit more of a reestablished inner core, and that would make quite a bit more sense. But I think for just the purposes that we're looking at it today, it puts us in a good place. Now, maybe down the road we could take that on if this entire concept kind of cleans up. So right now, I think we're doing okay with this intersection. It's could be. Let's see. It probably would make sense to be a stoplight. It might help or hurt us. I don't think it would overly hurt us, but I think it wouldn't not be a stoplight. It's now basically the entry of the town. So I think that takes care of this end, and I think this T-junction makes this entire kind of side neighborhood slash town stepping down and out a lot better, and you could still step it out a little bit more once you would have access to these two tiles and just kind of put in mountainside housing a little bit and a few odds and ends. Not enough fish, so there is an aspect to that. This fish factory is over here, this is over here, so there's quite a bit of travel going on, but we probably could really solve that with warehouse. But we're not really in here to take on industry fixes, so let's keep traveling down, because I think our next major glaring issue is more one. This node count here is way too close to each other. Makes no sense. Let's cut that one and redistribute the traffic a different direction. Plus, it's the end of the neighborhood, sorta. So the farm isn't great. It's not bad, but it's not great. You know, this neighborhood's definitely way too close. And it's a very urban farm in a sense. I mean, you know, you have full functioning town around it. It's quite interesting and odd. And this, I think some of our changes here has really thrown the graphic AI out of whack. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what they're attempting to do here, but we'll let that settle down before we make any major decision. It looks like they're trying to take a huge U-turn. Now, we do have cargo train terminal and we have a passenger train station, so that's fine. This system's fine, like that makes sense to go, and the road's a little set up for it. I still think that this is kind of an inner, you know, if we're calling this the outer, the only difference is that I kind of think this road's way too big now, so let's just downgrade that. So that's, I think from a road perspective, we're definitely in okay shape. We're always going to have a few hot spots. I don't see anything crazy here. It's a little internetworked. We're definitely good on this, and really this town has a 2 access point, so that works. Now this road has become an actual outer connection point that doesn't interfere too much. We probably could take this connection away. I don't really know its massive benefit or anything. Let's take a look. Weird little house. It's being used as a throughput, a little heavier than it probably needs to be, considering this would be our main vein. This is probably being used more as a shortcut. Let's pull it. And probably have to get rid of that house. Cleans up the hill anyway. We have a little side business here. Now this has become a more straight stretch interchange. We still have a 4-way here, which I highly doubt would be four-way stop. So let's put a light in. So I think we're kind of down to this end of town and kind of the identity crisis that's going on. So this is definitely one street, one neighborhood. I'm not really sure why this connection exists. Outside of maybe access to the park side, but then again, this thing has a good community center. I mean, so much so that it has fast food. And the park makes that a little viable. And it has a little bit of a secondary Main Street growth sense on this end. But I think this really should probably downsize. I like the bridge, basically. That's the best part to me of the whole operation. But it probably shouldn't be over here. I think we're going to take it. Okay, so this is definitely a fenced-in neighborhood. So maybe with the thought that it's a little bit more private. I think that helped a lot. You know, it creates a little bit more of a barrier between this town and that town. Now, this one's sense of identity is probably a little bigger than it's intended or should be. I feel like this is just a sheer density grab. Makes very little sense. I think it's fine. You know, maybe it was a progression grab at the time. It really doesn't fit. I think it can fit a little. I think if you took this whole neighborhood and spread it out a bit, it could fit. So I think we'll do that real quick and give its identity back. Okay, so I think that's a good bit cleaner. You could maybe loop this around. I mean, we can take a quick look at it, but it really takes a lot of the parking away. If I could stretch that back out just a hair. See where our lines are. Right there. That's okay. Doesn't need to be a dead end. Doesn't have to be a dead end. Could be a dead end though. Could have left it. Would have been fine. But considering that there is a little bar and a little more amenities, it's coming off the park entrance. I think we could probably scoot this down, look a little bit more park associated. And I think that cleans up the identity a little bit. We didn't really lose much off the population, so I don't really have a problem with that. Granted, this is still a little big for what's going on here. Now, it does look like, in a sense, there's a little commercialization with it. You know, here's the horse riding part, post office, medical. This definitely has a pure private neighborhood kind of mentality behind it. Maybe a little tree line will help it. Make this a little bit more farm. It's really struggling on the farm identity, I think, but I kind of get it. I mean, it's more of a commercialized farm in a sense. I think the bigger problem is probably, so this is already looped and it's coming out here on the back. I guess my biggest question is why? So I kind of get the looping need. Well, we kind of already have it in and out. Granted, that comes out to the neighborhood. I think we can take that back. Rid of this road. The whole farm is a little odd. It's manageable in a sense, but it's also difficult. So, I I kind of get that that's, I guess, feeding the entire industrial park here. Let's fill the tree lines. Get tilted over so we'll need some power lines. Well, let's grab this, spin it where it grabs the road. It still can stay reasonably hooked. Let's grab surface painter real quick. I don't love this as the main connection. It was either cut it here or cut this, and I think this has a little bit more need. Mainly, you still have to run it to here, so I think that'll be okay. So now we have a more purposeful loop. I think kind of finish out the concept here. While it's fine that it's temporary. Temporary happens. Let's see what we have going on over here. Let's just carve this in. So rather than delete and rebuild, let's just move it over here. I think we'll leave the plants for now. They're vanilla assets. It's not a fan. Lost power to the whole town. Let's get just a stock line out of here. This just is a secondary push. Now I think you can make it a cleaner push. Custom asset it for sure. You could change types, but from a vanilla standpoint, and the fact that this is a fine location in a sense, it's close to the rail, but I think ultimately it would be better on the next tile expansion or so if you went this direction to kind of build a full facility out right here. So this is still kind of a temporary holder, but at least it gets it out of here and kind of lets this area clean up a little more. And I think we could give it a little structure. Tap, tap, tap. And get out a little. And probably could run a little here. That'll be fine. So I do think that it's starting to clean up. It still has its issues, of course. Financially, we're good. We're sitting at 11,000. I mean, from a progression standpoint, it's quite solid, especially with 2 open tiles and over there completely open for builds. So there's really not a game progression issue here. Probably could add a cul-de-sac here, kind of make it look more finished and developed. But I do think that we changed the identity. And that was... This really didn't look like a totally broken save by any means, but it definitely looked like a save that was losing its identity as it grew and expanded with the tile expansion. Like, it didn't have a clear direction. And while I might not would have went with the farm now... probably would have made it a mining town. Maybe if I put a farm here, it would have been a completely different municipality standpoint, where this would have been a much bigger size down, and this would have been quite a bit smaller town. The only real glaring issue I think that would be left is there is definitely a distribution chain issue with the fish factory and the fish supply. Now, if anything, that route should be much straighter than it was. But now we are still sitting at 82, 83. I mean, there's definitely fluxes. It looks like it's fluxing kind of heavy right now, right in here. And now some of that, I think going into climbing 85, 84, 85, I'm pretty happy with that compared to like 79 that we were seeing at the start, because ultimately you would get this second connection, and you'd run right. You would go ahead and reconnect out here, and start to change your patterns, and then you could. Let's see if there's any bus systems in here. There we go. Well, we have a bus depot, but no routes. So, I mean, there is an aspect of setting up the routes is definitely going to help with that a little bit more. So, you know, I think we're in a good place, though. I think this is definitely a save that, with a few minor changes, definitely gives it a different outlook and a different identity. Okay, so I think that kind of wraps it up for this episode of Broken by Design, and I think it kind of closes the case. So, you know, I think this has potential for continuation now. I think we've solved some identity issues, some road issues, to a point that now makes this save less of a throwaway archive and I see sort of where it's going. Not that there's not a lot of work still left, because there really is. There's a ton of work left. There needs to be full redevelopment here. There needs to be a little bit cleaner structure in the swoop. Probably need in that, once you redeveloped in here, though, you could kind of readdress this main street and readdress this and kind of shift it and twist it and make it make more sense. I do think that I would sever one of these connections, probably this one, because it's a four-way and it's causing an issue, and we don't need this town's traffic jumping the bridge and coming straight in here where it can stay on this backside road. I think you would need to come in here and fully redevelop everything but the industrial park. I would leave it, and I'd leave the train, and I'd leave all the train access points, but I would probably redevelop my farm along the roadside, put a little housing in here. I'd probably drop the apartment complex. While our little fix today made it look better, it's slightly more realistic, but they're awfully giant for this size town. It really, that's probably more of a custom asset issue than it is the fact that there's an apartment complex right there. It'd be fine with a 6 building if they were smaller. I still like the theme and the initial thought process that was going on here. I don't like this roadside neighborhood, but like I said, coming into a save that died 3 years ago and had no rhyme or reason, but still had good potential. I think we've solved that. So I think we can call it a day, and until the next save comes along, we'll pick it back up in a new county, new world, and see if we can fix it or if it's not salvageable. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time.